Hi everyone. Today in my presentation, I'm going to talk about digestion and absorption according to NEET perspective. If you guys haven't watched the basics of digestion video which I have made previously, I will link it in the description below. Please look at it because that covers the basics, and this video is mainly about the important points according to the exam perspective. So let's go through it. So what is meant by digestion? The process of digestion is breaking down the food which is in complex macromolecules into simpler substances. That is called as digestion. And absorption is all these simple molecules, the small molecules which are there, are absorbed into whole of our body through blood. That is called as absorption. So digestion is a biochemical and a mechanical process. They are also called as biochemical process because it has enzymes which are helping in the process of digestion. Enzymes are usually proteins which convert big molecules into small molecules. So the breakdown of the food which is complex in its complex form to simpler form is called as digestion, and when it's distributed throughout the body is called as absorption. Now coming to major parts of the digestive system. So this is the digestive system. It starts with mouth, esophagus and salivary glands, stomach, liver, gallbladder, pancreas, then small intestine, large intestine, and then anus. So now coming to each and every part of it. So it begins with alimentary canal. So let me explain how the food enters. So when you eat an apple, you chew it with the help of the tooth, right? So each tooth is embedded in a socket of a jawbone. This type of attachment is called as thecodont. So the tooth, when it is embedded in the socket of a jawbone, this type of attachment is called as thecodont. So majority of mammals, including human beings, have two sets of teeth. One is primary dentition and permanent dentition. So primary dentition means the tooth which we have when we are children, and permanent is the tooth in the adult life. So, and then there are salivary glands near the cheek is the parotid gland, and there is submaxillary and submandibular gland, and there is sublingual gland behind the tongue. So the purpose of these glands basically is to secrete saliva. So whenever you see any food, there is secretion of saliva that is happening because of these glands. These glands secrete saliva. So they have enzymes. These salivary glands secrete an enzyme called as salivary amylase, which the food mixed with this saliva is called as bolus. Okay, so from the esophagus, it goes into stomach. So now, before that, let us study what is the dental formula in human beings. So it is 2123 by 2123. Now, what do I mean by that? Okay, so I'm sorry, I don't have a picture, but I can draw and show you guys. So if you see your teeth in the mirror, you can see two incisors, one canines, two premolars, and three molars. Okay, so two incisors, one canines, two premolars, and three molars. So it is the same here in all the four quadrants. So it's two incisors, one canine, two premolars, three molars, and even here it's two incisors, one canines, two premolars, and three molars. So this is the dental formula in permanent dentition. And this is the dental formula in primary dentition. There are no premolars. So now coming to oral cavity. So oral cavity leads into pharynx. Okay. So I have a question for you guys. So when we eat food, sometimes we get hiccups. Please comment below, why do we get hiccups? So continuing the lecture. So when we eat, the food doesn't go into trachea or windpipe because there is a cartilaginous flap called epiglottis. The cartilaginous flap is called as epiglottis, which prevents the entry of the food into windpipe, that is glottis. If this flap is not there, whatever we eat, it goes into the windpipe. Now the esophagus extends and it leads to J-shaped structure called stomach. And the stomach has three portions. This portion, which is directly going from the esophagus to the stomach, this portion is called as cardiac portion, and this is fundus, and this is pyloric. So again, I repeat, the stomach is divided into three major parts. That is the cardiac portion, into which the esophagus opens, a fundic region, and a pyloric region. This pyloric region goes to small intestine, and this small intestine will go into large intestine, and then goes out as, like, there is an opening called anus. Now, small intestine and large intestine. The small intestine can be distinguished into three regions, that is U-shaped duodenum, this is duodenum, and transverse is jejunum, and then going into the large intestine is ileum. Okay, so there are openings, like when the esophagus is, let me show it with another color. When the esophagus is here between esophagus and stomach, there is gastroesophageal sphincter. So the opening between the esophagus and stomach, it is called as gastroesophageal sphincter. Okay, and between stomach and duodenum, it is called as pyloric sphincter. Okay, so this is gastroesophageal sphincter and this is pyloric sphincter. Now, ileum opens into large intestine. It consists of cecum, colon, and rectum. So this is the cecum, this is the cecum, and this is transverse colon, ascending colon, and descending colon. So this is the cecum, and the vestigial organ that is of not much use is called as appendix. And this is the colon, ascending colon, transverse colon, and descending colon, opening into rectum and then anus. So these are the parts of the digestive system. Now, when we observe a transverse section of the gut, what do we see? So transverse section of the gut means, suppose imagine this is your intestine, you cut it and then see how it looks. So this part is, what is this exactly? So serosa is the outermost layer, which has a thin mesothelium. So this is the outermost layer. It has thin mesothelium. And this is the epithelium of visceral organs. Okay. And the second layer is inner circular layer and outer longitudinal layer. Okay. So inner circular layer and an outer longitudinal layer. It is called as muscularis. So muscularis is made up of smooth muscle. It is smooth muscle. Now about submucosa. Submucosa has loose connective tissue. So basically they have blood, lymph, and nerves. Submucosa, an important point to remember is they have Brunner glands which produce mucus. So submucosa has Brunner glands which produce mucus. Now about mucosa. Mucosa produces glands in stomach as well as in small intestine. So it produces glands in stomach as well as in small intestine. So the mucosal folds in the stomach are called rugae, whereas the mucosal folds in the small intestine are called as villi. Okay. Now, the mucosal epithelium, these epithelium have cells called as, they have some cells. These cells are called as goblet cells. And these goblet cells, they secrete mucus that help in lubrication. Okay. These goblet cells, they help in lubrication, and these cells along with the villi are called succus entericus. So this is important for NEET. This is important. And what are the folds in stomach and small intestine is important. So let me go through this again. So this is the transverse section of the gut. Outermost layer is called as serosa, which has thin mesothelium, which is of epithelium of visceral organs. And you have, so serosa is the outermost layer. There is inner circular layer and outer longitudinal layer. They are of smooth muscle. Then you have smooth submucosa, which is having loose connective tissue, which has nerves, blood, and lymph. The submucosa also has Brunner's glands, which produce mucus. Then on the epithelium of the mucosal epithelium, there are some cells called goblet cells. These secrete mucus, which help in lubrication, and these cells along with villi are called as succus entericus. And another thing, in mucosa, they produce glands in organs like stomach and small intestine. When mucosa is producing folds in stomach, it is called rugae, and when it is producing folds in small intestine, it is called as villi. So villi is the innermost lining of the lumen of the alimentary canal, and like I told you, in stomach it is called as rugae, in intestine it is called as villi. So this villi give a brush-like appearance, brush border appearance. There are mainly two functions of this villi. One is they increase the surface area. Okay, so villi increases surface area, and important point to remember is villi is like this. In between the villi, there are crypts called as crypts of Libercan. Okay, in between villi, there is crypts. Now, these villi are supplied by a large lymph vessel, and that vessel is called as lacteal. Okay, so what does the villi do? It increases surface area, and therefore it increases absorption of food, and it is supplied by lacteal gland, lymph vessel, and between these villi there are crypts of Libercan. Now, before I move in, I missed a point, so I would just like to tell something about accessory glands. So there are glands in our digestive system which do not take part in the digestive system, but they help. Like, what do I mean by that is, like salivary glands, liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. They are not taking part in the digestion, but they are secreting enzymes. They're secreting juices which help the process of digestion to be carried out smoothly. So they are called as accessory glands. So this is parotid gland near the cheek, this is submandibular gland and sublingual gland. Now coming to the liver. So some important points to note is liver is the largest gland in our body. And an important thing to remember is liver has no enzymes. It only has bile juice. It has bile juice, but it does not have any enzymes. Absolutely no enzymes. And this is a large gland weighing about 1.2 to 1.5 kgs. Now, the liver is divided into two parts. So they have two lobes. They're called right lobe and left lobe. So like, let me draw here. This liver has cells, they are called as hepatic cells. Okay, these hepatic cells, they secrete bile. So who is secreting bile? Hepatic cells is secreting bile. But let me tell you something. Let me ask you guys a question. What is the structural and functional unit of liver? Is it hepatic cells or is it hepatic lobule? The structural and functional unit of the liver is hepatic lobule, not hepatic cells. So it has been asked in NEET. So remember that. Now, these hepatic cells secrete biles, which passes through the hepatic ducts. So this is the right lobe. This is the left lobe. This is right hepatic duct, and this is left hepatic duct. These hepatic duct, along with it, is going into a muscular sac. So the bile is passing from right hepatic duct, from left hepatic duct. It passes through these both ducts, and then it is stored and concentrated in this thin muscular sac. It is called as gallbladder or cystic duct. So let me do it again. So this is right hepatic duct, this is left hepatic duct. Both, the liver secretes bile, which passes through these ducts, and then they are stored like this bile. You can see here it is stored. So it is stored in a muscular sac that is called as gallbladder or cystic duct. And these both, they form common bile duct. Okay. So right hepatic duct, left hepatic duct, they pass into a muscular sac that is gallbladder or cystic duct. They form the cystic duct, and these both together, they form common bile duct. And then they join with this. This is pancreas and this is pancreatic duct. These both together, they form something called as hepatopancreatic duct. Okay. So the pancreas is situated between like the U portion of the duodenum. This is the duodenum. And this hepatopancreatic duct here, it is guarded by a sphincter. The sphincter is called as sphincter of Oddi. It is called as sphincter of Oddi. So again, let me go through this again. Liver is the largest gland of the body, weighing 1.2 to 1.5 kgs, and it has two lobes. And the hepatic lobules are the structural and functional units of the liver. And liver has these hepatic cells which secrete bile, which passes through right hepatic duct and left hepatic duct, and then they are stored and concentrated in a cystic duct, which is in gallbladder. And this cystic duct, along with the right and left hepatic duct, they form common bile duct, which join with the pancreatic duct to form hepatopancreatic duct. And this is controlled by a sphincter that is called sphincter of Oddi. Let me tell you something about pancreas. Pancreas is basically both exocrine and endocrine organ. So it is both exocrine as well as endocrine. So exocrine part of it secretes pancreatic juice, which is alkaline in nature, and endocrine part secretes hormones and insulin and glucagon. So it has exocrine and endocrine. Exocrine part secretes alkaline pancreatic juice, and endocrine secretes hormones, insulin, and glucagon. So in stomach, I'll come later to that, but so there is HCl, there is mucin, and there is pepsin. Okay, there are gastric glands on the wall of the stomach which secretes these three things. So in order to neutralize the acidic nature of the stomach, we need alkaline substance to neutralize it. That is done by alkaline pancreatic juice. Now, the digestion. So when we eat the food, food is chewed, saliva starts giving salivary enzyme, that is salivary amylase, which helps in breaking down of the carbohydrates. Then it passes through esophagus. So this all is explained in my previous video. So this is a continuation, or like you can say a recap. So in the esophagus, by peristalsis wave-like movements, the bolus which is there, it is pushed through the stomach, and then in the stomach, here, the gastric glands on the walls of the stomach secrete HCl, pepsin, and mucus cells. And from the stomach, the food goes to the small intestine, where the digestion process is complete. Okay, and these glands, liver secretes bile juice, which helps in emulsification of the fat, and pancreas secrete pancreatic juice, which helps in digestion of carbohydrates, proteins, as well as fat, because pancreatic juice has trypsin, which helps in protein digestion, lipase, which helps in fat digestion, and amylase, which helps in digestion of carbohydrates. So, and gallbladder, it is storing and concentrating the bile. So once the food enters the small intestine, and then intestine also has intestinal juice, the process of digestion is completed here. In the small intestine, the food is mixed with bile from the liver and juices from the pancreas, and then the process is over. So whatever the remaining water is there, it will be absorbed, and in the large intestine, the unabsorbed waste product would be removed in the form of solid waste. The process of removal of the solid waste from a body is called as egestion, and it happens through anus. So before I move into what are the process, I have explained what is the process of digestion, but I want to tell you some reactions that happen. So food, when the salivary amylase acts on it, it is converted into maltose or simple sugar. So here there is breakdown of food. This is the first thing which happens. Okay, and second is proteins, peptones, and proteases are converted into dipeptides in the presence of trypsin or chymotrypsin or carboxypeptidase. You need to remember all these reactions, these 5 reactions. And like I said, starch or polysaccharides is converted into disaccharides in presence of amylase. Fats are converted into fatty acids and glycerols in presence of lipase. And nucleic acids are converted into nucleotides in the presence of nuclease. So these aces are all enzymes. So salivary amylase converts starch into maltose. Proteins are converted into peptones in the presence of proteins are converted into dipeptides in presence of trypsin, chymotrypsin, and carboxypeptidase. Polysaccharides or starch is converted into disaccharides in presence of amylase. Fats are converted into fatty acids and glycerols in presence of lipase, and nucleic acids are converted into nucleic acids in presence of nuclease. So again, let us go through the process of digestion. So in the mouth and esophagus, what is happening? Mechanical digestion is happening. Okay, so this mechanical digestion or the swallowing, it is a voluntary process. And the upper 1/3 part of the esophagus, you need to remember, is made up of skeletal muscle. Okay, now when this bolus enters the stomach, it is called as chyme. Okay, till then it is called as bolus. But once it enters the stomach, it is called as chyme. Here, it has entered the stomach through peristalsis movement, and the liver and gallbladder and pancreas, they secrete juices. Liver has Liver has bile juice, which helps in emulsification of fat, and gallbladder stores and concentrates the bile, whereas pancreas secretes pancreatic juice that has trypsin, lipase, and amylase. Trypsin that helps in protein digestion, lipase that helps in fat digestion, and amylase that helps in carbohydrate digestion. And then here the sphincter is called gastroesophageal sphincter, and this is called as pyloric sphincter. Okay, and we have also studied about sphincter of Oddi. And then the food passes through small intestine. The process of digestion is finished in the small intestine. Here the chemical digestion of carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acid occurs. So here they are completely broken down into these substances. We get the end products of digestion, which can be absorbed throughout the body through the blood. And now in the large intestine, the water is absorbed, and whatever cannot be absorbed, the solid waste material, comes out through rectum in the form of fecal matter. Now coming to the disorders of digestive system. So what happens when our digestive system doesn't work properly? So basically when our liver is affected, our skin and eyes turn yellow because of the bile pigments. They are deposited in the skin and eyes. That is the reason that why our eyes or skin looks yellow. So whenever the liver is not functioning properly, it causes jaundice. And then vomiting happens because what happens is when you throw up through mouth, that is vomiting. And when you have uncontrolled or more bowel movement, that is called diarrhea. So this is happening. This is a reflex action which happens, which is controlled by a vomit center in the medulla of the brain. Okay. And in the rectum, if the food is stuck, it doesn't go out, it is called as constipation. Like the fecus is retained in the rectum. And diarrhea, like I explained you, it is an abnormal frequency of the bowel movement. And indigestion, it is basically like food poisoning. When the food is not properly digested, leads to a feeling of fullness. That is called indigestion. So I hope you guys have understood what is the process of digestion, what is meant by digestion, what is meant by absorption, what happens in the liver, what happens in the pancreas, what happens in gallbladder, and what is the exact process, and what are the end products, the important end products, and what are the disorders of digestive system. So let's take a quick quiz. Please comment below the answers for this. I'll be discussing about this in my next video. So in the stomach, mucosal folds appear. They are, so in the stomach, you see mucosal folds. They are called as what? Are they rugae, are they villi, are they fibules, or they are none? And what is a good source of lipase? Is it saliva, bile, gastric juice, or pancreatic juice? Where do you find Brunner glands in the alimentary canal? Do you find it in serosa? Do you find it in the muscularis or submucosa of the duodenum or the mucosal layer? Bile duct and pancreatic duct open together into duodenum as what? And it is guarded by which sphincter? Please leave your answers in the comment below. I hope you guys have understood everything about the digestive system. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.